Las Vegas doesn't do nostalgia well. It's a city that tears down its past with the same enthusiasm it built it. Where other cities preserve their history in museums and monuments, Las Vegas preserves it in dust clouds and implosion videos. Drive down the strip today, and you'll see billion-dollar resorts that didn't exist 20 years ago, standing on land where legendary casinos once operated. The Venetian sites where the Sands hosted the Rat Pack. The Wynn Rises, where Howard Hughes lived as a recluse in the Desert Inn. Resorts World occupies the footprint of the Stardust, once the most notorious casino in mob history. These weren't just buildings, they were icons. They were the places where Las Vegas became Las Vegas, where the city transformed from a desert railroad town into the entertainment capital of the world. They hosted presidents and mobsters, movie stars and card sharks, weddings and murders. But Vegas has a saying, the only constant is change. And in this city, change doesn't mean renovation, it means demolition. When a casino stops making money, when its brand grows stale, when a developer sees potential for something bigger and shinier, the bulldozers come. The implosion crews set their charges. And in seconds, decades of history collapse into rubble. This is the story of the forgotten places. The casinos that built Las Vegas then disappeared. The hotels where legends were made and fortunes were lost. The resorts that defined entire eras, then were erased to make room for the next big thing. Some went out with a bang, literally, in spectacular implosions broadcast on television. Others simply closed their doors one day and never reopened. But all of them share the same fate. They're gone. And in a city obsessed with the future, they're slowly being forgotten. This is their story, before they vanish completely. The Sands Hotel and Casino wasn't just a place. It was a vibe, an attitude, a moment in time when Las Vegas was the coolest place on earth, and the Sands was its beating heart. It opened on December 15th, 1952, at a cost of $5.5 million. Modest by today's standards, but substantial for early Vegas. The Sands was the seventh resort to open on the Strip, and it arrived with ambition. Its tagline, "A Place in the Sun," captured the optimism of 1950s America, when anything seemed possible and the future looked bright. But the Sands' real genius wasn't in its architecture or amenities. It was in understanding that Las Vegas needed to be more than just gambling. It needed entertainment, spectacle, celebrity. The Sands delivered all three. At the center of it all was the Copa Room, the resort's showroom designed in a Brazilian carnival style and named after New York's famous Copacabana nightclub. The Copa Room hosted some of the biggest names in entertainment. Danny Thomas opened on the first night. Lena Horne, Nat King Cole, and Jerry Lewis all performed there. But it was the Rat Pack that made the Sands legendary. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop descended on the Sands in January 1960, and Las Vegas would never be the same. They were in town filming Ocean's 11 during the day, and at night they performed in the Copa Room. Not so much shows as parties that happened to have an audience. They drank on stage. They told jokes. They made fun of each other. They brought celebrities from the audience up to sing. Some nights they'd perform for 2 hours. Other nights they'd barely make it through 45 minutes before wandering off to the casino. It was loose, spontaneous, and electric, and it turned the Sands into the epicenter of cool. Sinatra had a special relationship with the Sands. He didn't just perform there. He owned a piece of it. He had a suite. He had influence. The casino gave him credit. The management gave him respect. For years, it was a perfect partnership. But relationships in Las Vegas are always complicated. And by the late 1960s, Sinatra's relationship with the Sands was deteriorating. The resort had been sold to Howard Hughes in 1967 as part of his massive Vegas buying spree. Hughes brought corporate management, financial oversight, and an end to the freewheeling style that had defined the Sands. In 1967, Sinatra got into a dispute with the casino over gambling credit. According to legend, he drove a golf cart through a plate glass window. He cut ties with the Sands and moved his performances to Caesar's Palace. It was the beginning of the end. The Sands continued operating through the 1970s and 80s, but the magic was gone. New mega resorts were opening up and down the Strip. Bigger, flashier, more profitable. The Sands, with its mid-century design and aging infrastructure, couldn't compete. By the 1990s, the Sands was tired. The paint was fading, the carpets were worn, the rooms were outdated, and the casino floor, once packed with high rollers and celebrities, was half empty most nights. In 1996, the Sands owner, Sheldon Adelson, made a decision. Rather than renovate, he would demolish. He had a vision for something bigger, something that would dwarf the old Sands, the Venetian. On November 26, 1996, at 2:45 a.m., the Sands main tower was imploded. Thousands of people gathered on the Strip to watch. In just over 10 seconds, the building that had hosted Frank Sinatra, where the Rat Pack had redefined Las Vegas cool, where presidents and mobsters had rubbed shoulders, collapsed into dust. The Venetian opened in 1999 on the same spot. It's enormous, over 4,000 suites, multiple restaurants, an indoor canal with singing gondoliers. It's successful. It's profitable. It's everything modern Las Vegas is supposed to be. But it's not the Sands. Today, almost nothing remains of the original resort. No plaque, no monument, just a photograph in the Venetian's hallway. Easy to miss if you're not looking for it. The Sands' iconic neon sign was saved, and now sits in the Neon Museum, a ghost of a bygone era. The Sands represented a specific moment in Las Vegas history, when the city was small enough to feel intimate, when celebrities could mingle with regular people in the casino, when entertainment mattered as much as gambling. That moment is gone, and so is the Sands. But for those who remember, who saw Sinatra perform, or sat in the Copa Room, or walked through those doors, the Sands will always be what Las Vegas was supposed to be, a place in the sun. The Stardust Resort and Casino opened on July 2nd, 1958, with the largest hotel tower and casino floor in Nevada. Its 188-foot-tall neon sign, featuring atomic-age starburst designs and over 7,000 feet of neon tubing, became one of the most recognizable landmarks in Las Vegas. But the Stardust's real claim to fame wasn't its size or its sign. It was what happened behind the scenes, the largest and longest-running skimming operation in mob history. The Stardust was financed partially through the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund, a favorite source of untraceable loans for mob-connected casino projects. On paper, it was owned by a businessman named Tony Cornero. In reality, it was controlled by organized crime families from Chicago, Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Cleveland. From the beginning, the Stardust was designed for one purpose: making money for the mob. And it did, in staggering amounts. Estimates suggest that between the late 1950s and the early 1980s, the mob skimmed over $2 million from the Stardust alone, possibly much more. The operation was sophisticated. Every night, casino revenue was counted twice, once officially for the books, and once for real. The difference was stuffed into suitcases and either driven or flown to Chicago, Kansas City, and other mob strongholds. No taxes, no records, just cash. Running the Stardust skim operation was Frank "Lefty" Rosenthal, the genius bookmaker sent by the Chicago outfit to oversee their Vegas interests. Rosenthal couldn't get a gaming license, too many mob ties, but that didn't stop him. He operated under titles like entertainment director and ran the casino from the shadows. Under Rosenthal's management, the Stardust became the most profitable casino on the Strip. He revolutionized the sportsbook, bringing in giant odds boards and live television broadcasts. He optimized everything: table placement, slot machine percentages, comp systems. The Stardust printed money. But Rosenthal's success attracted attention. By the late 1970s, the FBI was watching. Wiretaps were recording conversations between mob bosses discussing the Stardust by name. The Nevada Gaming Control Board was asking questions. And Tony Spilotro, the violent enforcer sent to protect the skim, was drawing heat with his reckless behavior. The walls were closing in. In 1979, the Gaming Control Board summoned Rosenthal to a televised hearing and formally denied his gaming license, effectively banning him from running casinos. In 1982, someone planted a bomb in his car. He survived, barely. Shortly after, he left Las Vegas for good. The FBI's Operation Strawman, launched in the late 1970s, finally exposed the Stardust's skimming operation. Wiretaps captured mob bosses, casually discussing how much money they were receiving from the casino. Informants detailed how the skim worked. Former employees testified. In 1985, Chicago outfit bosses Joseph Ayupa and John Cerrone were convicted of skimming over $2 million from the Stardust. They each received 28-year prison sentences. Other convictions followed across multiple cities. The mob's control over the Stardust, and Las Vegas, was broken. The Stardust continued operating under new ownership, but it was never the same. By the 2000s, the resort was dated, tired, and unprofitable. In 2006, Boyd Gaming sold the property to a development group planning a massive new resort called Echelon Place. On March 13, 2007, the Stardust was imploded. Over 200 pounds of dynamite brought down the buildings in less than 30 seconds. Thousands gathered to watch another piece of Vegas history disappear into dust. The Echelon project was supposed to replace it, a $4 billion mega resort complex. But the 2008 financial crisis halted construction. The partially built structure sat abandoned for years, a rusting skeleton on the Strip. Finally, in 2013, the Malaysian casino company Genting purchased the site and completed construction. Resorts World Las Vegas opened in 2021, a gleaming modern resort with LED screens, celebrity chef restaurants, and all the amenities today's tourists expect. It's successful. It's impressive. But it's not the Stardust. The Stardust represented both the best and worst of Las Vegas. It was glamorous and profitable, hosting world-class entertainment and bringing thousands of jobs to the city. But it was also corrupt, a money laundering machine for organized crime, built on theft and protected by violence. Today, the Stardust's famous sign sits in the Neon Museum's boneyard, slowly fading in the desert sun. It's one of the few physical reminders that the Stardust ever existed. But for those who remember the mob's Vegas, the era immortalized in the film Casino, the Stardust will always be the crown jewel. Glittering on the outside, rotten underneath, and ultimately too corrupt to survive. The Riviera Hotel and Casino opened on April 20th, 1955, as the first high-rise resort on the Las Vegas Strip. Its 9-story tower was revolutionary for its time. Most Vegas hotels were still low-slung, spread-out affairs. The Riviera went vertical, signaling that Las Vegas was becoming a real city. Liberace performed on opening night, his trademark candelabra and glittering costumes perfectly matching the Riviera's upscale aspirations. The resort represented sophistication in a town still dominated by cowboy themes and mob money. It had class, style, ambition. For decades, the Riviera thrived. It hosted legendary performers, Joan Rivers, Dean Martin, Phyllis Diller. It was a favorite location for Hollywood productions, appearing in films like Casino and The Godfather. The Riviera wasn't the biggest or flashiest casino, but it had staying power. But staying power only lasts so long in Las Vegas. By the 1990s, the Strip had changed dramatically. Mega resorts like the Mirage, Luxor, and MGM Grand redefined what a Las Vegas casino could be. They offered thousands of rooms, multiple pools, shopping malls, nightclubs, celebrity chef restaurants. The Riviera, with its aging tower and limited amenities, couldn't compete. Ownership changed hands multiple times. Each new owner promised renovations, reinventions, new energy, but none of it worked. The Riviera was trapped in the past, and tourists wanted the future. By the 2010s, the writing was on the wall. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, LVCVA, wanted to expand the Las Vegas Convention Center, and the Riviera sat on prime real estate adjacent to the facility. In 2015, the LVCVA purchased the property for $182.5 million and announced plans to demolish it. The Riviera closed its doors on May 4th, 2015, after 60 years of operation. It was the last of the original 1950s era resorts still operating on the Strip. Employees wept. Regular customers gathered for one last drink. The casino held going out of business sales, selling everything from slot machines to furniture to carpets. On June 14th, 2016, the Riviera's Monaco Tower was imploded. On August 16th, the Monte Carlo Tower came down. Thousands of people watched from nearby parking lots and rooftops as decades of history collapsed in seconds. Today, the site is a parking lot and convention space. No plaque, no memorial, just asphalt where the Riviera once stood. The Riviera's demolition marked the end of an era. It was the last link to 1950s Vegas, to the Rat Pack days, to the time when Las Vegas was still finding its identity. Every other casino from that era, the Sands, the Dunes, the Desert Inn, was already gone. The Riviera was the survivor, until it wasn't. In a city obsessed with the new, the Riviera's greatest sin was being old. It represented a Las Vegas that no longer existed, and modern tourists had no interest in visiting it. So it was erased, efficiently, completely, as if it had never been there at all. But for 60 years it was. And for those who remember, the Riviera will always represent an era when Las Vegas was smaller, scrappier, and somehow more authentic, before the megacorporations, before the $10 billion resorts, when a 9-story tower felt like a skyscraper, and Liberace on opening night felt like the future. The Dunes Hotel and Casino opened on May 23, 1955, bringing Arabian Nights fantasy to the Las Vegas Strip. Its signature feature was a 35-foot-tall fiberglass sultan statue standing outside the entrance, welcoming guests to a resort themed around exotic Moroccan palaces and desert mystique. It was pure Vegas. Take a theme, exaggerate it, add some neon, and sell the fantasy. The Dunes wasn't the biggest or most profitable casino, but it had style. It pioneered the concept of themed resort design that would later define modern Las Vegas. And it hosted some memorable moments, including being the alleged site where the famous Rat Pack nickname was coined during a rehearsal. But the Dunes' most lasting contribution to Las Vegas came after its death, not during its life. By the early 1990s, the Dunes was struggling. Newer resorts had eclipsed it. The Arabian theme felt dated. The property needed major renovations it couldn't afford. In 1992, billionaire casino developer Steve Wynn purchased the Dunes for $75 million with one plan: tear it down and build something spectacular. That something was Bellagio. On October 27, 1993, the Dunes North Tower was imploded in a spectacular display broadcast live on national television. Over 200,000 people gathered on the Strip to watch. Fireworks accompanied the explosion, turning demolition into entertainment. The South Tower came down in 1994. It was the first time a major Las Vegas casino had been imploded as a public spectacle. The city realized that destruction could be a tourist attraction, a celebration of renewal, of Vegas's endless capacity to reinvent itself. Where the Dunes stood, Wynn built Bellagio, which opened in 1998 at a cost of $1.6 billion. It wasn't just a hotel, it was a statement. Bellagio featured an 8-acre artificial lake with choreographed fountain shows, a conservatory with seasonal botanical displays, an art gallery with works by Picasso and Monet, and over 3,000 luxury rooms. It was, at the time, the most expensive hotel ever built. And it redefined Las Vegas luxury. Bellagio wasn't about Arabian fantasies or cowboy themes. It was about real elegance, European sophistication, world-class service. It proved Las Vegas could compete with any luxury destination on Earth. The Dunes' demolition became symbolic of Las Vegas's philosophy: destroy the past to build a better future. There's no nostalgia, no preservation, no looking back. Just bigger, shinier, more profitable. Today, nothing remains of the Dunes. No sign in the Neon Museum. No plaque at Bellagio. The Sultan statue was auctioned off and now sits in front of a pawn shop on Boulder Highway. A strange, sad afterlife for a symbol that once represented Vegas glamour, But the Dunes' legacy lives in every themed resort that followed. When you walk through the Venetian's canals, or Paris's Eiffel Tower, or New York's Manhattan skyline, you're experiencing an idea the Dunes helped pioneer, that casinos should transport you somewhere else, even if that somewhere never really existed. The Dunes is gone, but its spirit, the idea that Las Vegas is a place where fantasy becomes reality, lives on in every themed resort on the Strip. The Desert Inn opened on April 24, 1950, as one of the early luxury resorts on the Strip. It featured an 18-hole golf course, elegant rooms, and a level of sophistication that set it apart from downtown's rougher gambling joints. But the Desert Inn's place in history was secured not by its opening, but by a guest who checked in on Thanksgiving Day, 1966, and never checked out. Howard Hughes, billionaire, aviation pioneer, film producer, and one of the most famous recluses in American history, arrived at the Desert Inn, planning to stay a few weeks. He rented the entire top 2 floors of the resort and settled in. Weeks turned into months. Hughes, increasingly paranoid and eccentric, refused to leave. He lived in darkness, obsessively watching films, conducting business through intermediaries, and rarely seeing anyone face to face. By early 1967, the Desert Inn's management had a problem. Hughes was occupying their most valuable rooms during the busy season, and high rollers were being turned away. So, they asked Hughes to leave. He refused, and on March 27, 1967, rather than move to another hotel, Howard Hughes wrote a check for $13.2 million and bought the Desert Inn. It was the beginning of the most extraordinary real estate buying spree in Las Vegas history. Over the next 4 years, Hughes purchased the Sands, the Frontier, the Castaways, the Silver Slipper, and the Landmark. He bought the local TV station. He bought land by the thousands of acres. He became the largest employer in Nevada. But Hughes's impact went beyond real estate. His arrival in Las Vegas coincided with a critical moment in the city's history. The mob still controlled most major casinos, and their presence was becoming a liability. Negative publicity, federal investigations, and growing public concern about organized crime were threatening Las Vegas's image. Hughes represented something the city desperately needed: legitimacy. He was a respectable billionaire with no mob ties. His presence signaled that Las Vegas could attract mainstream investors and corporate ownership. The Nevada legislature even passed the Corporate Gaming Act of 1967, making it easier for publicly traded companies to own casinos, specifically to accommodate Hughes. His arrival helped push the mob out. Where organized crime had operated in the shadows, Hughes operated in the open. Sort of. He was still a recluse who rarely left his room, but his business dealings were legitimate. The casinos he bought were cleaned up, professionalized, and freed from mob control. Hughes left Las Vegas in November 1970 as mysteriously as he'd arrived, sneaking out in the middle of the night. He died in 1976. But his impact on Las Vegas was permanent. He'd proven that casinos could be run as legitimate businesses by corporations, not criminals. The Desert Inn continued operating under various owners through the 1990s, but by 2000, it was outdated and unprofitable. Steve Wynn, who'd already transformed Las Vegas with the Mirage and Bellagio, purchased the property for $270 million. On October 23, 2001, the Desert Inn closed. Wynn demolished it to build his most ambitious project yet, Wynn Las Vegas, a $2.7 billion ultra-luxury resort that would bear his own name. Wynn Las Vegas opened in 2005, featuring a 50-story tower, an artificial mountain, a golf course designed by Tom Fazio, and the highest level of luxury service in the city. It was Steve Wynn's masterpiece, the culmination of everything he'd learned, building Mirage, Treasure Island, and Bellagio. The Desert Inn is gone, but its legacy remains. Howard Hughes's presence there transformed Las Vegas from a mob-run gambling town into a legitimate corporate industry. Without Hughes, Vegas might still be controlled by organized crime. Without the Desert Inn, Hughes might never have gotten involved. Today, Wynn Las Vegas stands where the Desert Inn once operated. There's no memorial, no marker. Just a modern resort built on historic ground. The Desert Inn lives on only in photographs, in memories, and in the corporate structure that still defines Las Vegas today. The Last Frontier opened on October 30th, 1942, as the second resort ever built on the Las Vegas Strip. Its Western theme, complete with wooden sidewalks, saloon doors, and a rustic aesthetic, defined early Vegas's identity as an Old West outpost in the desert. The resort went through multiple incarnations over its 65-year life. It was renamed the New Frontier in 1955 after a major renovation. It changed owners dozens of times. It was Howard Hughes' third Las Vegas casino purchase in 1967. It survived economic downturns, ownership disputes, and constant competition from newer, flashier resorts. But the Frontier's most famous chapter came in the 1990s, when it became the site of the longest strike in American history. On September 21st, 1991, the Culinary Workers Union went on strike against the Frontier over wages and benefits. Management refused to negotiate, believing they could outlast the workers. They were wrong. The strike lasted 6 years, 4 months, and 10 days. 2,323 days total. Workers picketed outside the Frontier daily, in blazing summer heat and rare desert cold. Celebrities like Jesse Jackson joined the picket lines. The strike became a national symbol of labor struggles in corporate America. Finally, on February 1st, 1998, the Frontier's new owner agreed to a settlement. The workers had won. But the victory was bittersweet. The Frontier was financially devastated, its reputation tarnished, and its future uncertain. The casino limped along for another decade, changing hands multiple times. By 2007, the Frontier was a relic. Its Western theme felt hopelessly dated. Its infrastructure was crumbling, and developers had bigger plans for the property. On July 16, 2007, the Frontier closed. On November 13, 2007, it was imploded. The demolition was anticlimactic. No crowds, no fireworks, just a quick implosion in the pre-dawn darkness. Today, the site remains vacant. Various development plans have been announced and abandoned. For years, it was just an empty lot on prime strip real estate, a rare piece of undeveloped land in the heart of Las Vegas. The Frontier's story is about survival and obsolescence. It survived longer than almost any other classic Vegas casino, adapting and reinventing itself for 65 years. But in the end, Las Vegas doesn't reward longevity. It rewards profit. And when the Frontier stopped making money, it was erased as efficiently as everything else. The Frontier represented the last gasp of mid-century Vegas nostalgia. It was the final casino with genuine ties to the 1940s and 50s still operating. When it came down, that era died with it. The Aladdin Hotel and Casino opened on April 1st, 1966, with an elaborate Arabian Nights theme featuring domed towers, Middle Eastern architecture, and exotic decor. It was meant to evoke the mystique of ancient Baghdad, complete with a theater restaurant called the Baghdad Showroom. The Aladdin's most famous moment came on May 1st, 1967, when Elvis Presley married Priscilla Beaulieu in a private suite. The wedding lasted 8 minutes. Elvis wore a tuxedo. Priscilla wore a white gown and a 3-foot-high beehive hairdo. It became one of the most iconic celebrity weddings in history, and permanently linked the Aladdin to rock and roll royalty. But the Aladdin was cursed from the beginning. Mob money allegedly financed its construction. The casino struggled financially almost immediately. It went bankrupt in 1979. It reopened in 1980. It went bankrupt again in 1984. It was renovated and expanded in the 1990s. It went bankrupt a third time in 1997. The Aladdin couldn't escape its bad luck. Every owner who touched it lost money. Every renovation failed to attract enough customers. The property was beautiful, well located, and cursed. In 1998, new owners decided to start fresh. They would demolish the entire resort and rebuild from scratch. Same name, same location, completely new building. On April 27, 1998, The Aladdin was imploded. Over 20,000 people gathered to watch, many nostalgic for the sight of Elvis's wedding. The new Aladdin opened in 2000 with a massive $1.4 billion price tag, featuring over 2,500 rooms, a large casino, and the Desert Passage shopping mall. It immediately went bankrupt. Again, the Aladdin couldn't shake its curse. The new resort was beautiful, but poorly managed, overbuilt, and saddled with crushing debt. In 2003, Planet Hollywood purchased the property for $635 million and completely rebranded it. Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino opened in 2007, finally breaking the Aladdin's curse, or at least changing the name enough that the curse didn't follow. Planet Hollywood has operated successfully ever since, though it's gone through its own financial struggles. The Aladdin story is about Vegas's willingness to fail, rebuild, and try again. Most cities would give up after one bankruptcy. Las Vegas just changes the name and rolls again. The Aladdin failed 3 times and was rebuilt twice, only in Vegas. Today, nothing remains of the original Aladdin except memories and photographs. The site where Elvis got married is now a Planet Hollywood hotel room. The Baghdad showroom is gone. The Arabian Nights theme is gone. Even the cursed name is gone. But the Aladdin proved something important about Las Vegas. Failure isn't permanent. In a city built on gambling, sometimes you lose. But you can always bet again. Not every forgotten casino gets its own chapter. Some disappear with barely a mention, their names fading from memory as quickly as their buildings vanished into dust. But each played a role in Las Vegas history. Each represented someone's dream, someone's investment, someone's vision of what Vegas could be. Here are the forgotten ones, the casinos that once stood on the Strip but are now barely remembered. The Sahara, 1952 to 2011, 2014 to 2020. The Sahara opened in 1952 with an African desert theme and became one of the Strip's most popular destinations. The Beatles stayed there during their 1964 Vegas visit. The casino hosted the Rat Pack and other celebrity acts. Its iconic sign featured a massive neon camel. But by the 2000s, the Sahara's location at the north end of the Strip, far from the main action, had become a liability. Tourism had shifted south, and the Sahara couldn't compete. It closed in 2011, reopened briefly as SLS Las Vegas in 2014, then closed again. In 2020, it reopened as Sahara Las Vegas, trying to recapture its original identity. The Sahara is still standing, technically, but it's been so completely renovated and rebranded that almost nothing from the original 1950s resort remains. It's a ship of Theseus situation. Is it still the Sahara if every piece has been replaced? The Moulin Rouge, 1955 to 1955. The Moulin Rouge holds a unique place in Las Vegas history as the first racially integrated casino hotel in the city. It opened on May 24th, 1955, in West Las Vegas, catering to African American performers and customers who were unwelcome at strip casinos. Sammy Davis Jr., Nat King Cole, and other black entertainers performed at the Moulin Rouge. It was glamorous, successful, and groundbreaking, and it lasted 6 months. On October 30th, 1955, the Moulin Rouge closed, officially due to financial problems. The building sat abandoned for decades, a haunting reminder of both progress and failure. It partially burned in 2003 and 2009. In 2017, it was finally demolished completely. The Moulin Rouge represents a darker chapter of Las Vegas history, when the city was segregated, when black performers could entertain at strip casinos but couldn't gamble there, couldn't stay in the hotels. The Moulin Rouge tried to change that. It failed, but it tried. The Hacienda, 1956 to 1996. The Hacienda opened on June 24th, 1956, at the far south end of the Strip. Its location was considered remote at the time, so remote that the casino offered free transportation from downtown to entice customers. The Hacienda was never the most glamorous casino, but it was steady and profitable for 4 decades. It featured a horse and cowboy theme and hosted solid entertainers. It served its purpose. In 1996, Circus Enterprises purchased the property to build something bigger, Mandalay Bay. The hacienda was imploded on December 31st, 1996, in a New Year's Eve celebration. Fireworks accompanied the demolition as thousands of tourists counted down to both the new year and the hacienda's demise. Mandalay Bay opened in 1999, a $950 million tropical-themed mega-resort with 3,200 rooms. It was everything the hacienda wasn't. Huge, luxurious, modern. The hacienda is barely remembered today, but it paved the way, literally, for one of the Strip's most successful resorts. The Landmark, 1969 to 1995. The Landmark Hotel and Casino was one of the strangest buildings in Las Vegas history. It looked like a giant spaceship, a 31-story cylindrical tower topped with a flying saucer-shaped structure. The Landmark was cursed from the beginning. Construction started in 1961, but stalled repeatedly due to financial problems. It didn't open until 1969, and even then it struggled. Howard Hughes bought it in 1969 as part of his Vegas buying spree, but even his money couldn't save it. The Landmark closed in 1990 and sat abandoned for 5 years. On November 7th, 1995, it was imploded for the film Mars Attacks. A fitting end for a building that always looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The Boardwalk, 1966 to 2006. The Boardwalk was a small, quirky casino with a Coney Island theme located on the Strip next to what's now Bellagio. It was never meant to compete with the mega resorts. It was a budget option, a place for locals and low rollers. But its location made it valuable. In 2005, MGM Resorts purchased the Boardwalk for $87 million, not for the casino, but for the land. They demolished it in 2006 and built City Center, a massive $9 billion complex featuring multiple hotels, condos, shopping, and dining. The Boardwalk didn't go out in a spectacular implosion. It was just quietly torn down, a victim of real estate economics. What they all have in common. These forgotten casinos, the Sahara, Moulin Rouge, Hacienda, Landmark, Boardwalk, all share the same story. They served Las Vegas during a specific era, filling a need, attracting customers, employing thousands. Then the era changed, the needs changed, and they became obsolete. Most cities would preserve them, build museums, declare them historic landmarks. Las Vegas just erases them and moves on. There's something brutal about it, but there's also something honest. These casinos weren't built to last forever. They were built to make money. And when they stopped making money, they stopped existing. It's the most Vegas thing possible. No sentiment, no nostalgia, just economics. But economics doesn't capture everything. These places mattered to the people who worked there, who met their spouses there, who celebrated birthdays and anniversaries there. They mattered to the performers who played their showrooms and the dealers who ran their tables. History isn't just about the famous places. It's about the forgotten ones, too. The Moulin Rouge, opened for 6 months in 1955, meant more to Las Vegas's African-American community than some casinos that lasted 50 years. The Hacienda's demolition on New Year's Eve, 1996, was a party, but it was also an ending. The last affordable casino at the south end of the Strip replaced by a resort most locals couldn't afford. These places are gone, but they were here, and for a time, they were Las Vegas. Las Vegas is built on a simple principle. Nothing is sacred. Not history, not nostalgia, not sentiment. If a building stops making money, it disappears. It doesn't matter if Frank Sinatra performed there. It doesn't matter if it's architecturally significant. It doesn't matter if it's only been standing for 20 years. In most cities, 40-year-old buildings are considered modern. In Las Vegas, they're candidates for demolition. This isn't preservation, it's evolution. Brutal, ruthless, relentless evolution. Las Vegas doesn't care about your memories. It cares about quarterly earnings reports. And if tearing down the Sands and building the Venetian generates more profit, the Sands comes down. But something is lost in this process. Not just buildings, but identity. When you erase your history this completely, what are you left with? When nothing survives, how do you know who you were? Las Vegas's answer is, it doesn't matter who you were, only who you are right now. Walk down the Strip today, and you'll see resorts that didn't exist 20 years ago. The Cosmopolitan opened in 2010. Resorts World opened in 2021. And already, people are speculating about which resort will be demolished next. The Tropicana is scheduled for demolition in 2025 to make room for a baseball stadium. The Mirage, which revolutionized Las Vegas in 1989, is being converted into Hard Rock Hotel, a complete rebrand of one of the most important casinos in Vegas history. Nothing is permanent. Everything is negotiable, even icons. But here's the thing about Las Vegas. This impermanence is part of its appeal. The city reinvents itself every decade, offering something new, something bigger, something shinier. You can visit Vegas 1 year, come back 5 years later, and half the skyline has changed. That's exciting. It's thrilling. It's part of why people keep coming back, to see what's new. What's next? What impossible thing Vegas has built this time? But it comes at a cost. The Sands is gone. The Stardust is gone. The Riviera is gone. The Desert Inn is gone. Every casino that defined mid-century Vegas has been demolished, and the people who remember them are getting older, their memories fading with them. Soon, there won't be anyone left who saw Frank Sinatra perform at the Sands, or gambled at the mob-controlled Stardust, or stayed at the Desert Inn when Howard Hughes owned it. Those moments will exist only in photographs, documentaries, and archives that most tourists will never see. Las Vegas doesn't build museums to its past. It builds parking lots. And eventually, those parking lots become casinos, which become parking lots again. It's the circle of Vegas life. There's a scene in the 1995 film Casino where Robert De Niro's character, based on Frank Rosenthal, reflects on how Vegas has changed. He talks about how the corporations took over, how the casinos became theme parks, how the city lost its edge. And then he says something profound. Today it's all gone. You got a whale show, a pirate show, and a volcano that erupts every 15 minutes. And what happened to the old-timers? They're gone. He was right. The old-timers are gone. The casinos they built are gone. The city they knew is gone. But Vegas is still here, bigger than ever, more profitable than ever, drawing more tourists than ever. Is it better? That depends on what you value. Modern Vegas is cleaner, safer, more family-friendly. The casinos are professionally managed. The entertainment is world-class. The restaurants rival any city on earth, but it's also more corporate, more sanitized, more predictable. There's no Frank Sinatra wandering the casino floor at 3 a.m. No mob bosses in the back room. No sense that anything could happen at any moment. Modern Vegas is a machine, efficient, profitable, and soulless. Old Vegas was messy, dangerous, and alive. You can't have both. Vegas made its choice. It chose profit over nostalgia, the future over the past, the Venetian over the Sands. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's even necessary. Because if Las Vegas had preserved every casino from the 1950s and 60s, it wouldn't be Las Vegas. It would be a museum. And museums don't evolve. Las Vegas's greatest strength and its greatest tragedy is its willingness to destroy itself to survive, to tear down yesterday to build tomorrow, to forget its past to embrace its future. The Sands is gone. The Stardust is gone. The Riviera, the Dunes, the Desert Inn, the Frontier, the Aladdin, all gone. Demolished, imploded, erased, replaced by bigger, shinier, more profitable versions of the same dream. But they were here. For decades, they defined Las Vegas. They hosted legends, created memories, and shaped what it meant to visit the city. They were more than just buildings. They were institutions, icons, parts of American culture. And now they're forgotten. In 50 years, the Venetian will probably be demolished too. The Wynn will come down. Even the Bellagio, Steve Wynn's masterpiece, will eventually be replaced by something bigger and better. That's the deal you make with Las Vegas. Nothing lasts forever. Everything is temporary. The house always wins, even against itself. But for a moment, these places mattered. The sands mattered. The stardust mattered. The Riviera mattered. They were part of something special, a time when Las Vegas was still becoming Las Vegas, when the rules were still being written, when anything seemed possible. That time is over. Those places are gone. But they happened. And for those who remember, who were there, who saw the Rat Pack perform or gambled at the mob-controlled casinos, or watched the implosions from the Strip, those memories are real. Las Vegas may forget its history, but some people don't. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the stories survive even when the buildings don't. Maybe Las Vegas's legacy isn't in what it preserves, but in what it creates, and then destroys, and then creates again. This is Las Vegas, where nothing is sacred except the next big thing, where history is written in dynamite and dust, where every ending is just a new beginning. The forgotten places of Vegas are gone, but Las Vegas itself keeps going, building, demolishing, reinventing, never looking back, never stopping. Because in Las Vegas, the past is just land waiting to be redeveloped, and the future is always one implosion away.